What's happening?
¿Qué pasa?
Not amigo. We can't do this whole show on that though, because that's all I know.
In Spanish, I can get a couple of words. That's about it. Yeah, it won't be a very long show.
Yes, not real estate related.
No, I'm trying to pull up the Facebook page. So go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, so I guess we're back here. We didn't we were at some meetings and stuff last week, but happy to be back with everybody and talking about. I mean, Abe, you brought up earlier in the week. We were talking a little bit about inventory, and the conversation came up about where is it? Where are the sellers? And we're just talking about kind of what happens this time of the year. So tell me a little bit more about what you were thinking about when the topic came up that we started talking about.
Yes, I mean, typically you would think going into the spring, we should start seeing inventory build, right? That's what buyers think. That's what sellers think. That's what many agents think. So the consensus around the country is, inventories, spring is the best time to sell. That's when your lawns look the best, the house, the weather's nice, buyers are out there looking. That's the time to hit the market. So we're getting there. I mean, tomorrow's April 1st. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing much, at least in our market. Now, you guys out there who I was watching, please chime in and tell us how your market is. Is anybody out there starting to see inventory build? Okay, because I'm not seeing it here. In our market, our inventory is just not building. As soon as something hits the market, we're still, I look at how many are active and how many of those are pending out of what's on the market. And I look at that percentage. And I've been tracking that for a while now, like almost 2 years. Every single day, I actually track it. I've got a spreadsheet. And it's not going anywhere. The percentage of pending relative to what's on the market is about the same. Total inventory on the market hasn't really changed. So I'm not seeing that spike. So where is it? Where are all the sellers?
Yeah. Well, I think if you're measuring pendings or you're measuring, available inventory, I don't think we're going to see that start building, meaning seeing active supply that's sitting for a period of time for a while, because I just think the demand is it could absorb a lot of it. I think we might be able to jump 20-30% in most of the categories in our market for a period of time. It would absorb it just as quickly as it came on. It's interesting because when you're looking at the inventory, you're looking at available and pending, which is a great metric. I usually am measuring like new listings coming on. Mm-hmm. And so I know the months for the most amount of listings typically come on in our market, usually April, May, and there's probably a couple of years, maybe it was March. And then the least amount is normally November and December, not surprisingly in the winter. But the difference between those 2 months doesn't drop off. Like it's not this huge gap between the most amount of listings coming on any month and the least amount, usually 15 to 18%. And so like, I think maybe what we're seeing now is with it being absorbed quickly and most of the stuff that comes on selling fairly quickly, you don't feel the difference from like December to January came up a little bit probably. Then January to February, there's probably a little bit more. February to March, each month there's some more stuff, but it's all getting, it's getting scooped up really quickly. So that might be what we're feeling is just the stuff that is coming on. It's more now. It'll be more in April than it was in December, but it's just still goes so quickly that makes us feel like, there's just like where are all these sellers at? Because they're there, the transactions are there, and like we've talked about before, you got to have a seller and a buyer for a transaction. So
and by the way, Arya said no, and he's out of New York City, so New York inventory is not growing there. Ashley Hollenbeck, I can't remember actually what market you're in, but that market's inventory is not growing. So I'm not sure if I agree with you on a certain part of that. That I actually think that total number of transactions in our market by the end of 2022 is going to be down. I think total number of transactions across the whole U.S. is going to be down. So she's out of Las Vegas. Is going to be down 2022, and I think it's going to be a function of inventory. I don't believe that it hasn't crept up much. If you look at numbers right now relative to what they were in January, there's not a whole lot of difference in inventory. Mm-hmm. I do agree with you that, yes, as soon as something hits the market, it's getting gobbled up. There's no question about that. So the demand is still very, very high. the supply is just extremely low. And I think, last year we didn't feel it that much because we were carrying over so much inventory. So once all that inventory got depleted, it's not being replenished at a quick enough pace right now to justify or to stay at pace with the demand. So I do think that number of transactions is going to be down for 2022 relative to 2021.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that for the year end 2022. The thing that I think is going to affect that most is I don't know that there's new construction that can keep up with the pace, and that's a big portion in a lot of markets. So I don't think that they're going to be able to do the new homes that were in most markets this year. The other thing I think that is important to talk about is that I do think there's a ton of stuff sitting on the sidelines. I remember in 2000, the term shadow inventory came out in like 2000, probably 10 or 11. So it'd been a couple of years of foreclosures. And then there was this talk of shadow inventory, which was all this stuff that was out there that was, banks were holding, but they held it themselves. Maybe they just took it back and started renting it. And there was always this this inventory is going to flood at some point. And it fluctuated a little bit. And it was just kind of that term out there for properties that were going to be sellers. They just weren't at the time. And I do think that's out there right now. I think there's a lot of people right now that own properties that are going to be a seller, and that they're waiting for these little thresholds to be hit. Maybe it's their neighborhood or their home to hit this certain price, and then they're a seller. Or maybe it's, if we can get to X amount with the property that we can sell, and then we're able to buy by this time next year in the neighborhood that they want. That might be it. And I think there's actually, I've talked to quite a few people recently that have actually said, I'm going to sell, but I don't want to sell before we've peaked. And of course we know, or they may not say it that way, I want to make sure that I get as much as possible. Okay, well, what's that number? Well, I don't know yet. Okay, well, you're not going to know until you're looking back and going, God, that was the highest one. Dang it, I missed out. So I think there's a lot of people that are, they're sellers, but they don't want to be the guy that says, like, it's in their mind, if I sold today and then in a couple months I looked and there was one higher than me, I think I lost. Even though the only people that end up as the highest one are the lucky one. They didn't plan it. Nobody knew that. So I think there is a lot of that. We'll call it shadow inventory of people that are on the sidelines right now. So, God, you got to make contact with those people. And the ones that are saying, I'm going to do something sometime, I'm going to do something when it gets here, those are the ones that you're just going to be able to scoop up when things start changing a little bit. Got to have those people categorized so you can get back to them and let them know, all right, the change you were looking for is happening. Let's go.
Yeah, I love. Hey, Greg.
Hey, man. Hey, guys.
I love those sellers. Like, yeah, no, I'm going to wait. Okay, what exactly are you waiting for? Well, I'm not sure. I kind of want to wait a little bit longer. What price? I mean, at what point are you going to know? Is it a price thing? Is it? No, I kind of just have a gut feeling. Okay, got it. You're going to make a financial decision based on a gut feeling. Okay. When do you think that's going to happen? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, okay. I love those conversations.
No, I kind of just have a gut feeling. Okay, got it. You're gonna make a
Yeah. So, Greg, I don't know if you were listening at all or what we're talking about here.
I don't know exactly what you're saying. I mean, I kind of caught on just a little bit. I'm just trying to turn this one, turn the Facebook. I had the Facebook feed on my phone also, so it was background noise. But anyways, no, I don't know exactly what y'all were talking about, but I could just catch on for the last 30 seconds and make some assumptions.
I'll give you a quick summary. So the topic is, where are all the sellers, right? We were talking about, okay, we're going into spring, and shouldn't we be seeing inventory go up? Where's all the sellers? You got buyers waiting for the spring season. This is the time typically that buyers think it's the time to sell. Sellers think it's the time to sell. Where are they? And then we got to talking about inventory and things like that. So,
yeah, it's a great question. Where are the sellers? They're actually they're in the grocery store right now. They're driving down the road right now. They're eating food. They're eating in a restaurant right now. Sellers are everywhere.
Yeah.
They're just like the old way of thinking of like, Well, we know there's some sellers in the expireds. There's some sellers with the FSBOs. We all know that, and there's not as many expires, these days. But because of all the talk amongst the industry about all the appreciation, all the money that's being made, there's more people that are not technically sellers that are actually wondering if they should be sellers. So there's a whole new category of sellers that fall under the FOMO category.
Mm-hmm.
They actually have no thought of selling. They had no thought, but now they have a fear of missing out in being able to cash out on that equity. I mean, I listed a property, and like, why are they selling? They are selling because they don't want to miss out on the opportunity to sell at this high, and they're just going to rent for a couple years, and they'll make a decision if they want what they want to do then. So that seller's not going to come from a FSBO or an expired or a referral service. That FSBO is going to come from, I mean, that seller is just an ordinary person that's having these thoughts. And if people are like trying to figure out, like, does that really happen? I challenge every real estate agent. I bet you a majority of real estate agents in America have actually had that conversations themselves about their own property.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have. My wife has. Should we sell now? And just like, because I mean, the answer is no, I don't want to, but I did. I think every agent has had that conversation about their own personal property.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm waiting for those conversations to increase, okay, and be more common, because the more you're going to start hearing that, because I thought it was going to be coming soon, where people start saying, okay, yeah, you know what, maybe I'm going to try to time this thing. Maybe I'll sell right now and just kind of sit on the sidelines, rent for a year, and kind of see what happens with the economy. So if we start seeing more and more of those conversations, in my opinion, right, you guys correct me if you think otherwise, I think that's going to be a good indicator that we might be peaking.
Yeah, Brendan, I think you can relate to this maybe a little bit more than Abe, because Abe wasn't really selling back in those years way back, even though Abe is very knowledgeable of markets in general. Brendan, don't you think, like, it's really interesting, the market timers always miss the timing. So what will actually happen, and the people that are market timing, they are going to start calling us right after there's a dip. They will not call us before there's a dip. And then they're going to be like, hey, I think we want to sell now, but the market will already be dipping when those people kind of enter into the market.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about when you hopped on. Yeah. It's in. So I've got a category of people that when I'm talking to them, that they're like, no, I want to wait and see what happens with the market. Well, that's a yes. That's a yes, I'm selling. It's just not right now because I don't believe things until I see them. Okay, well, I know who that is. That's not anybody that's looking at data or anything or basing on motivation. Their motivation is going to come when they go, oh God, I missed it. I can't do this again. So all those people, when something does show, maybe that's perception in, the reports that they're getting on TV, or they actually look at a property and now it's less than the last one. Those are the people that I'm going to be all over. Hey, listen, remember when you said, I'm going to wait until this? All right, here we are. So you've really got to be, those conversations to me are like, those are the gold for, who knows, maybe it's 2024. I don't know, but they're going to be somebody in the future. It's the same buyer in 2013 that was like, no, I think it's going to go lower. I want to see where the bottom is. And then all of a sudden you're calling them and saying, sorry, you're going to have to pay $10,000 more.
Yeah.
That's the FOMO seller Greg was talking about. Yeah. They don't want to miss out. They want to get to the top.
Yeah. In order to properly time the market, you got to have enough guts to do the opposite of what the market's doing.
Yeah.
Like that's the market. If you want to figure out, and I don't even know that's surely not an exact science, that statement that I just made, right?
All guts and a little luck.
Yeah. Yes. But if you really want to time the market, then go in the opposite direction of the market.
You got to have a lot of guts and a lot of luck. Whether it's the real estate market, the stock market, there's just no time in it, no matter how good you are. Anybody out there, if you guys are commenting, please give us, give us your opinion, chime in. And what's really cool about using this StreamYard is, I can do this. So somebody that mentions a comment, I could click a button and it shows their comment. And thank you for that, by the way. and it showed.
Hey, Brendan, do you think he chose that comment on purpose? Like, there was probably like, you guys suck, but
Yeah,
he was good at choosing the right one.
There's 6 of them got deleted
First of all, I would,
off my feed.
but in this case, his picture shows up. So anybody else that comments, if you don't, there's a link up top by the right by the video that says you have to allow StreamYard to show your name. If you click on that, then we can actually see your picture and we know who you are. Otherwise, it just says Facebook user on my end here, unless I open up Facebook in a different screen and look at it, go back and forth and see it there. So just FYI, whoever's listening out there, if you actually click on that link up top, then we'll get you up here as well with a comment. Otherwise, it's going to look like this: Facebook user. Just,
yeah.
Okay. So I know you guys have been in this business longer than I have, right? So do you think we're going to see? I'm sure we will. Okay, but when do you think we're going to see some sort of relief with inventory? Is it going to be driven by interest rates? Is there a certain point where you think, if you were going to guess, is it if we hit 4.5%, if we hit 5%? What do you think is going to help get inventory somewhat back to normal? Anything out there at all?
Like what? Like, are you thinking like what's going to trigger it? Like what's going to be the trigger?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously we're just all speculating here,
Right.
but I think the trigger is going to be when the buyers start to feel uncertain about the future. So like anytime there's a buyer out there willing to buy well over full price after the market is appreciated for 2 to 3 straight years, waive everything, all the contingencies, then that tells me there's a lot of certainty. Okay. When that certainty starts to shift, then people will take more times. They'll be more hesitant to make those, get in multiple offers and whatnot. So it's really, to me, a shift from certainty to uncertainty. Now, what's it going to take for the buyers to shift there? Because I think the buyers drove it up. Demand drove it up. So it's probably going to be lack of demand that's going to actually drive it down. Okay. So I think lack of demand is going to be the cause of increased supply. I don't think the shift of the market in the future will be driven by more supply. It'll be driven by less demand. And then supply, and then as sellers here, there's less demand, then they're going to actually dump supply on.
Yep.
So I think that's how it will occur. So, we really got to listen to, you really don't want to watch a lot of news, but you do need to kind of stay in touch with what messages the news are sending out right now into the marketplace. In the last week, I've actually noticed multiple days in the last 5 days, at least 5 business days, where some of these news channels, the financial news channels, are really harping on real estate right now. And they're talking about how unbelievable the real estate market is and how the supply there is no supply and prices are appreciating. That's exactly what the news looked like before the market started softening in the past. Mm-hmm. It's like when people start to think there's never going to be an end to this, everything is going to go up forever. That's, in my mind, when we're at the top. And I feel like we're getting there. Again, I'm not claiming there's going to be a bust.
Right.
But I asked you the other day, I walked up to you and I said, Abe, are you seeing, or I text you, I said, are you seeing any increases in inventory? You told me no. But what's more important is, why the hell did I ask you that question? I asked you that question because I'm seeing things on news. Mm-hmm. I'm talking to buyer's agents who are saying they have a few more properties to show right now. And then I feel like I'm getting more people to call me about listing. And I wanted to ask you, do you see more inventory? Answer was no, but I was inspired by something to ask you. Yeah, man.
And think about, on the flip side of that, after things did soften, how long did it take before you started hearing a different message on news and the conversations and stuff like that? I remember us having a conversation in 2009 because I was talking to people who, there was a lot of lots in our market, a lot of development, and a lot of people that bought on speculation, residential lots and in higher end communities. paid exorbitant amounts for it compared to what they'd been in the few prior years. And we're talking to them, and they had closed on a lot and not ever made a payment. They were 12 months behind on payments, and the banks hadn't foreclosed on them. And we're going, something's not right here. And then we're seeing all of this stuff, and we're talking to sellers, and we're seeing stuff sit forever. And meanwhile, the stuff we were hearing was still, pretty positive. And so there was just that delay in before people's perception changed. And that was based on what they heard. So, it's just, you've got to.
So true.
Yeah. There's just there's always going to be the shift is in what people start seeing, and then they start reporting, and then they start hearing, and then they start talking to their neighbor about something different. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this has happened, but it actually started way before that.
That's a great point. I can't remember how long. It's probably been a couple of years because I actually looked at that number. I was looking at the inventory in the market during the last bubble and crash compared to relative to what the prices were. And there was a short period of time. I want to say it's 6 months, but it could be 3, 4, 5 months, somewhere between 3 to 6 months, where I call it the blind spot. So the same time, inventory was driving drastically, but prices were still appreciating. So there was that small period of time, I think it was 6 months again, where the buyers had no clue. They thought it was still an appreciated market. They were still buying while prices were going up. Inventory was growing. And before you know it, then all of a sudden, boom, the prices stopped and inventory just kept going straight up. So there is that blind spot where it takes a little bit of time for the average consumer to get caught up with what's really happening in the market.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's a few. There's actually, I like the term blind spot because I see there's two blind spots. There's one where literally it's a blind spot, and then there's one. The second one is when they don't want to see what's in front of them. Okay, so the one blind spot is the first blind spot that I see is where real estate agents start to notice something is changing. That's why I asked you what's going on with inventory, Abe. So and again, there was no inventory change when I asked you that the other day, but I'm really taking a look at this. So what will happen is at some point in the future, we will see that inventory is creeping up. We'll see that days on the market it's longer days on the market. The challenge is right now as a real estate agent, we're seeing days on the market be 5 days, right? And so when the market shifts in the beginning, maybe days on the market extend to 8 days or 10 days. Let's say it's 5 days to 10 days. Well, a lot of people are like 10 days. That's still fast. I mean, things are still selling lightly fast. That's 100% increase.
Yeah.
So like people need to turn that into percentages. They don't need to be looking at days on the market as days. They need to look at it as percentages, because when I say that's 100% shift, that's actually totally different than, oh, it's still 10 days. That still sells fast. Well, the thing is agents aren't even noticing that. So if the agents aren't noticing, the consumer's not noticing it. And that's an early indicator. And it's an early indicator because it's not based on, it's not necessarily based on closing prices, number of inventory. It's just a days on market, right? So it's an indicator that we can look at that tells us the direction of the market. Yeah. Most agents don't look at it. Consumer doesn't know to look at it. And the news doesn't pick up on it. And then there's about a 6-month delay. This is what I call the blind spot, where these early indicators actually show up in sales, right, or the slowing of sales or more inventory. So about a 6-month time frame before the news channels pick up and start speaking it to the consumer. And so that's one blind spot. That's a big blind spot right now. It's why real estate agents have so much value, because if we're looking at our numbers carefully, we're going to see it 6 months beforehand. But the other blind spot, which is where where the consumer doesn't want to believe what they see, is when mark my word, the first little sign of the market going down, mark my word, that consumer is going to say, oh, I think this is just a little bit of a blip. It's going to go back up. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is just a little bit of a speed bump. It's going to go back up. That's them doing this. I don't want to see it.
Right.
It's going to go away. No, it's still there. Okay, I don't want to see it. It's going to go away. It's still there. They're going to do that. Okay, and then we professional agents are going to say, "Look, you're taking a risk here. Oh no, I think the interest rates are going to come down, and this is going to happen. It's going to go back." They'll actually do that for a year to 2 years, and then what happens is when they've actually exhausted the majority of their equity, and they get into the danger zone of being upside down, then they'll take action. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And if you talk to a good financial advisor, they're going to say that's exactly what happens in the securities market.
Mm-hmm.
This is a human. This is a pattern for humans. Denial, 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 and then just surrender and accept.
Just like the craps table.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please don't remind me.
Glad I went home, fellas.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah, let's not talk about that. But yes, I mean, as an agent, I mean, yeah, spot on. I think you got to look at the numbers. You have to look at the numbers, and you have to do it with more frequency. You know, if you were looking at the numbers once a quarter, you've got to do it like weekly. Like we're looking at the numbers every single day. I mean, we're looking for the smallest, minor, little micro change. Okay, but if we see a pattern with those little micro changes, then at least we were going to catch it kind of early. Yeah, and then
And more important than that, just talk to more people. Look at how many groups of people that were in this conversation where they fall in this. Like there is no better time to gain clients than in transitions. And we're always in a transition. We haven't been 16 years in the business. We haven't been out of a transition. We're always going from one market to the next. So more conversations.
Yeah. And everyone needs to understand inventory is not going up in our market right now. That's according to Abe, and I believe it. So inventory is not going up. We're not seeing any signs of a dip. Okay. But when we do see inventory going up, when we do see these numbers shift, it's way too late.
Mm-hmm.
And so even like when we see it's going to be after it's already happened. Like people say, well, how do you know when the market's like when you're at the top of the market? When you're actually below the top of the market. You don't know where the top of the market is until it's already came off that top of market. That's what's really important. And so we're studying these numbers so we can see it before our competition, and then we can start sharing it with the consumer, not to create doom and gloom, but to give them a competitive advantage of getting out first.
Yeah, here's a couple of comments. Again, I don't know who it is because I can't see. I'd have to switch pages on my screen, but and then this one, I don't even want to think about the number 7. Come on, man, you brought back some old memories. Some bad memories. But a couple of more people said that they're not seeing inventory go up in their market either. So it'd be interesting to see what happens next couple of months. All right, gentlemen, it was always a pleasure.
Yeah, man.
Talking to you two.
Fantastic conversation. Great dialogue.
And thank you all for watching. And keep chiming in. We'll get back and reply to some of these messages. So if you got some input, you've got some ideas of talk about your market, kind of let us know. It's always good to know what's happening in other areas as well. All right, gentlemen, until next week. See you.
All right, guys. All right, bye-bye.